In Joel 2 and verse 25, the Bible says, I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army, which I sent among you. Father, in Christ's name, we come before you tonight asking your blessing on the Word. And Father, that you'd open up our minds to receive, believe, and share. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. Joel chapter 2 is giving an overview of a couple of great tragedies that befall Israel during the tribulation period. And of course, the first part of Joel describes this demonic army that we read about in Revelation 9. And then we also see up here in verse number 19 concerning these people out of the north, 19 and 20, talking about Russia, of course, and the invasion that comes down. And when you put these two events together, I mean, this is almost total annihilation. There is so much destruction going on. And when you read in Revelation, you read how that billions of people die during this last 3.5 years. And even in the midst of this, when there seems like there is no way out and there's no hope, the Bible tells us here that God says, I will restore to you.
Amen.
I'm going to give it back to you.
That's right.
And then he lists 4 different insects. And these insects, they are not literal insects, but they're referring to these judgments for the world number, the judgments that's come upon Israel during the tribulation period. And he calls it his great army. Now these insects are kind of similar in the things that they do, but tonight I want to talk about that cankerworm. That cankerworm, it's very interesting. When I looked up the definition of the cankerworm, it's a worm that crawls around on the ground, and of course it devours things that it comes in contact with. It eats leaves and other stuff like that. It can destroy your crops. And it can make a menace of the fields. But there's something else that this worm does, and this worm likes to lick after it's eaten. In other words, it goes around licking up every drop, every minute particle that's fallen from that leaf. It cleans up everything as it goes along its way. And when I looked at that in the spiritual sense, I'm reminded how the devil is a devourer, and he comes through chewing away at our lives, and then he just licks up anything that's left. I mean, any life, any desire, any ambition, any goal, any vision, the devil hangs around to take even that last glimmer of hope before he moves on.
That's right.
Now that's the job of the devil, and as we preach this morning, there is no repenting, there is no salvation, no forgiveness for the wickedness of the devil, and so he has nothing to lose. He knows he's doomed for the pit forever, and he's going to take as many as he can, and he will get you. You know, a worm cannot devour you at one time. It would take a long time for the worm to devour. And of course, some insects, if they put poison in you, it can affect your whole body. But in any event, this cankerworm is a devourer and then a licker up of anything that's left behind.
Yeah.
There is no trace, amen. And so when we see the killings in our school and the teenagers and the young kids being as vile and wicked as they are, and then we're running around saying, how could they do this? I mean, they're so nice, they're so innocent. How could anybody do this? And it's because the devil leaves no trace and he moves on. And so we blame it on mental problems or economy, environment, mama, daddy. We blame everybody except the cankerworm as it's slithering on and crawling on out of sight. Amen. That's the enemy that we're facing today. Now, there's some other worms that's associated with it. And one of the worms is a locust or an insect. And we know, we think locusts are these things that show up every 17 years. but the locust is another name for a type of grasshopper. And when we were in Trinidad, we took a picture of this thing that had flew into the church, and Brother Burley put his hand up there, and of course, his hand's not as big as some, but I mean that insect was as big as his hand. As long as his hand, and he had it up there against the wall. And so these things, they can really do some damage when they get into an area. And I have seen documentaries of these things as they are moving and migrating from field to field, and you can't see in front of you because of the cloud that they make. I mean, billions of them together, and they're just swarming everywhere. And brother, this is the way that I see the devil in our lives as well. As you go this way, there he is. You go that way, there he is. There is seemingly no way out. When one thing gets you down, something else comes in upon you, and you wonder if you'll ever see day again because of the darkness of the swarm of the devil. And these are all types of the devil as we look at each one. And then of course the caterpillar, we think, well, they're nice little bugs, and then they'll turn into a beautiful butterfly, and you leave the caterpillars alone. But the word in the Bible means ravager. It is a creature that ravages things. It may not kill a lot of things, but it will leave strips and leaves, and it will deform and distort, and it will corrupt, and so that the leaf cannot do the job that it was intended to do. The fruit is corrupted. Everything gets corrupted as it moves along. In other words, the job of the caterpillar is to beat it down. It is to bloody it, and it is to bruise it. Amen. And when we come in contact with the devil, then that's what he's going to do. He'll beat you down, he'll bloody you, and he'll bruise you. Amen. And that's why we're called upon to resist him and to fight that good fight. Our church age has laid down. Amen. And just let all these critters just crawl all over me. And we don't resist him whatsoever. I'll tell you. And then you have the palmer worm, and this worm, its name means devour. I mean, that's what it does. It don't just make a streak in a leaf. It don't just bloody you or make you sore for a while, but it will consume you. And the devil is seen ultimately in the palmer worm as he will to consume you mercilessly. He don't care about you. And that's a mistake our churches have made. They believe that God carries around cookies in a tray, and they believe the devil's gone off to play. Well, I'll tell you that's not happening, and that's why we are being bloodied and beaten down and being devoured, so that the church has no respectability in the world in which we live.
That's right.
They don't care. You know, I've had friends that drank alcohol. I mean, after I'm saved, I have made friends with people, trying to win them to the Lord and befriended them. I've worked with some vile people. I'm sure Brother Dave has. Anybody that's been in the workforce, you have worked with some vile people. There's no doubt about it. But somewhere along that line, your Christianity helped befriend these people. And they liked you, you know. They didn't believe everything that you did, and they wouldn't dare darken a church door, but they had respect for you.
Yes, that's right.
And when things got rough, sometimes it asked you to pray for them. All right? Or if they had a spiritual question or some kind of moral issue, they'd ask your opinion on it. But today, they don't think nothing about sitting down at a table with you. And, I mean, if you go out in a restaurant and you're ordering and you've got these families that come in that know not God, you know, it used to be they'd have respect for you, and they would forego the alcohol for that hour that they're with you. You know, they'd sit down, they'd order water or milk or, you know, something, some cola, and then they'd go home and drink their liquor. Not so anymore. Amen. And we saw evidence of that today. They'll come right in, sit down, drink liquor in front of you. Amen. And it leaves me with some questions when I saw this, or I heard about it. I saw the group there. I didn't know there's the mixed company and there's drinking too. And it left some questions in my mind. Why did that family feel so comfortable with these Christians over here that they could sit down and drink right in front of them? You know, I'd protest that. Yeah. And I have in the past, you know. There's no smoking in my house. There's no drinking around me. I mean, you can do that on your own time. When our family, my company, well, we're not going to have that going on. But yet this family seemed to be comfortable in the presence of these Christians to do this stuff. And then I wonder, well, why didn't the Christians say, wait, no, let's don't do this? But it's because we believe that God carries around cookies on a tray and the devil's gone off to play.
That's right, amen.
Amen. And we have witnessed that. I know what I'm talking about. But brother, these are the 4 worms or the 4 insects that we're looking at. And keep in mind the cankerworm, because that's the worm that came to my mind yesterday when I was thinking about the service. I already had the Sunday morning, but Sunday evening I tried to get a head start. And out of the blue that word came up. God will restore what the cankerworm has taken from you.
Praise the Lord. We thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah.
What the enemy has come in like these insects, and he's devoured and stripped. And we can look at each empty bench tonight, and we can visualize somebody that used to sit on them. Amen. And somewhere along the line, these worms came in and got a hold of them and took them from our midst. But I'm of the opinion that God is able to restore those here in the church that the cankerworm got.
That's right, amen.
Don't you?
Amen.
I don't believe in this restoration theology. And I'm not talking about restoration theology. Amen. The church hasn't lost anything. But individuals within the body of Christ are stumbling and faltering and failing and allowing the cankerworm to come and get them. And God has said, I'll restore. Now here's God's people. The church, we are God's people as well. But Israel has always, they're His firstborn. All right. You always remember your firstborn. Okay? And if you have a family that has a lot of kids in it, sometimes you can get them all confused, but you'll remember the firstborn. You'll take more pictures of the firstborn than you will of the rest of them. You'll think that you got to do everything special for the firstborn, and then when the second one comes along, you kind of back off a little bit. You run out of Polaroid film, and the parties are not as extensive, and then on down the line, the last 3 or 4, they're missing out on a whole lot. Because you've gotten older, you don't have patience with them anymore, and so the firstborn you remember. Israel's God's firstborn, they were His chosen. They will always be His chosen, always be His people. The church has not come in and removed Israel, amen, but we're just a part of God's extended family. And Israel will always be His children, and they'll always be His family. And they have been taught a lesson, a discipline of God has brought them into the tribulation, but He will bring them out. And so when all of this is over with, when He sent those hordes from the north, sent them back home, and when the demonic army goes back to the pit after 5 months and all of the smoke has settled, God says in verse number 19, Behold, I will send you corn and wine and oil, and ye shall be satisfied therewith. Now, I don't have time tonight to go through every promise that God's given to His people here.
Yes, Lord.
But I'm of the opinion if God can do it for the Israelites, God can do it for the church, and right. God can do it for an individual.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Amen. We don't have to sit in despair.
Right.
We don't have to be like Job and scrape the sores with a potsherd. Amen. We may be going through that, But eventually, the sores will dry up, and we won't need the potsherd anymore, and we'll get up out of the ashes and wash ourselves and stand among men as we should be, and as God told Job.
That's right. Amen.
Told him to quit himself and be like a man.
Yeah.
Amen. But he let him go through all of these difficulties. Now, I don't know why we go through all the things that we go through. I don't understand all these things. You would think that we'd be a little different and a little separated and a little more favored and all of that. But sin has caused the demise of the human race. And we're having to deal with that sin issue. Why do people get sick? Because we're in a body of flesh and the sin nature has come upon us. All right. And sometimes God allows these things, and of course God allows it all. I mean, He could stop it at any time, but God allows the natural processes. You know, I've been studying about creation and the arguments that's going backward and forth, and my position and the church's position, I don't know how you believe individually, but you did vote on it to accept it in our rules of conduct as an old earth ministry. But in any event, I view the old earth as processes that took place over a long period of time. Not evolution, but God creating new things as time went along. Amen. At one period, He created dinosaurs. Another period, He created mammals. And another period, created man. And He's put different species on the earth through processes. Our universe is formed through processes. Amen. I mean, the young earthers claim that the universe was made static. In other words, it's not expanding, it's not going anywhere, and yet science has proven for the last 100 years that it is. Over and over, they keep telling us different ones all over the world, and our measurements and everything tell us that it is expanding. And that's according to the Word of God, where He stretches out to heavens. But in any event, I see God using processes in a lot of things. Amen. And so I see God using processes right here with Israel being His people, and then the church coming into view, and then Israel coming back into view, that God is taking His time and building one precept upon the other. Right. Amen. We don't see everything clearly now. We will. We look through our glass darkly now, but we'll see it by and by. And so we can't explain or understand why sometimes we feel like we're being treated as one of those gutter trash around this world, and we wonder what in the world's going on. God has promised, I will restore to you. Now, this promise, even though this is a promise to Israel, let's get that clear. The church is not in view here in the Old Testament. But this is a promise to the Israelites. But I'm not taking their promises and putting it on the church. I'm just saying this is a logical conclusion.
Yes.
That if you keep serving God and keep going forward and keep making progress with the Lord, fighting that good fight, running that race, and doing all of the things that we know to do, by and by, it's going to show up. Our effort is going to show up.
Yes, it will.
I mean, you pray for years for a loved one, by and by, they'll be saved. It's going to happen somewhere down the line. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about direct promise, but I'm talking about where God said all things work together for good to them that love God. Amen. You love God tonight, it's going to work out. Don't care what's in your life.
That's right. Praise the
It's
Lord.
going to work out. Amen. Praise the Lord. And so He says, I will restore you what my army, these insects have done, these plagues that's been given to you, I will restore them. And so I feel that we will recover. When things look down in the church, to be of good cheer. God's not forsaken us. When the ship was sinking out in the Mediterranean Sea, Paul said, be of good cheer. Not a one of us is going to perish tonight if you stay on the ship.
That's right. Stay on the Lord.
Don't jump ship. You stay right here on the ship. The angel of the Lord's told me that tonight. And so we're going to stay on the ship. And God said, I'll send you corn and wine and oil. Verse 20, I will remove far off from you the northern army. And in the spiritual sense, he's talking about, I'll take these plagues away from you. I'll drive them out from you. Now, God had made a promise in the Bible, and the promise is that if you would obey the Lord according to his precepts, and this is an Old Testament promise, but I have accepted that for me and for the church and for any Christian today. And that promise was that I will not allow any of those diseases that afflict those Canaanites and those people there in Cana to come upon you.
Right.
And so when it was first announced back in 1980 of the AIDS virus, and everybody's writing articles about it. They was claiming that heterosexuals are just as susceptible to it as somebody else, as same-sex couples. I mean, they was going down the gamut, and they was listing what things you could do to get it and what not to do, and it almost made people afraid even to get married. Well, it looks like to me, if they were so scared about that, why did our state repeal the necessity of a blood test before you're married? I had to have one. I got married. It was a law. Now you don't. So why? I mean, it looks like that would have detected some things before you ever got married. But in any event, I have stood on that promise, and I have preached. I preached it in Rural Retreat. This is where I first heard it. And I preached to them. I'll tell you tonight, I do not worry about getting the AIDS virus. I do not worry, amen, about that. That is not a concern of mine. I don't worry about the AIDS virus. And any born-again child of God should not have to worry, because this plague afflicts those that are in sin. Now, innocent babies are sometimes born with this problem, and you may get a bad needle or something like that, but I'm standing on the promises of God that these things are not out there just floating around in the air waiting to bring a Christian down. I'm rebuking that, because God said these things are coming upon the heathen, and they're not going to come on my people. So God's going to restore some things for us. And he goes on to say in verse 21, the Lord will do great things. I mean, when you're going through that trial, and when you've been sick for months, when you've been broke, and all of this stuff here, the devil has brought great things against you. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and you're laying flat on your back, and the prognosis is not good, and the trouble is everywhere. I mean, it's not good, because the devil has brought great things upon you. Right. But here God has promised, I'm going to do some great things. Amen. And so God is going to bring great things against the devil, and God is going to do great things for us. Amen. I'm not saying make us all millionaires. I am saying, though, that he can heal our sick bodies. He can restore our health and restore our sanity and restore our strength, that we could serve him. Amen. After all, this world's not our home. We don't have to have a perfect anything in it. Right. Because we're only passing through. After all, Abraham, what did God do for him? I'll tell you, Abraham traded in his tent for a city. Amen. He took that old tent he carried around, smelled like camel hair, amen, and for all his life, but he traded it in, and he rose that day after Christ's resurrection, and he's now in heaven, amen, in the presence of God. Yes. I like that. Traded in that old tent for a city. And I'll tell you, we're going to do some trading one day too. And we're going to trade in all of our cares and all of our sorrows, all of our hardships and our toil and our labor and everything else that sinful Adam cursed man with. And we're going to trade it in for immortality, for righteousness, for goodness, for health beyond imagine. And I'll tell you, the eye hath not seen, the ears never heard, and neither has it entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for them that and are called according to His purpose.
Amen.
All right. The old cankerworm, you just have to get on out of here. Amen.
That's right.
It doesn't do you any good to ravage my body. Doesn't
That's
do you
right.
any
Blessed
good to
be the
lick
name
up
of the Lord.
every drop of blood I've got.
Thank you,
It doesn't do you any good to take the clothes off my
That's
back.
right.
I am promised according to David, he was old, but he said, I once was young, and I have never seen the
Amen.
righteous
Praise
forsaken, nor his seed begging bread.
That's right. Thank you, Jesus.
I will restore to you the years that the cankerworm has taken from you. Amen. What it has eaten. Now, he said, I'll do great things. And then he goes down into verse number 26, and I just want to shorten verse 26 to 3 words, ye shall eat.
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah.
I'll tell
Thank
you,
you, Jesus.
there's nothing takes the place of even medicine
Yeah,
like a good meal.
that's right.
I mean, these people that are overweight like me, you know, I gained 3 or 4 pounds since the last time I was at the doctor a couple of weeks ago. You know, I'm just growing by leaps and bounds.
Bless him, Lord.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford new clothes and I can't diet because I've got in an eating mood. And I'm making up for the year that I couldn't.
Yeah.
All right. The year that nothing seemed to help and take place, but God said ye shall eat.
That's right.
I mean, even if you're troubled, if you can sit down and eat a candy bar or something other, it just seems to make you feel better. Comfort food.
That's right.
All right.
I agree with that.
Ye shall eat. And of course, food in the Bible was associated with fellowship. Abraham making food and preparing for the angels and so forth and so on. It's a type of fellowship. That's why the church breaks bread. That's why it seems like more people will come to a dinner than any other time. They like food. Okay. And so God is giving us all of the metaphors that relate to restoring of the soul. Now, you remember what in the parable of the wheat and the tares, and the people run up and they said, an enemy have done this. Yes, the enemy had. We're going to go out there and we will root out the enemy. We'll get the tares out of the wheat. And the Lord said, no, leave them alone. I'll take care of that. All right. And so we spend our time trying to dislodge everything, but God will take care of it. But even though the enemy has done great things, God will do greater. He'll do greater to him, and he'll do greater for us. All right. And so we got to understand that. Now, Job is the epitome of suffering. And of course, you know, we compared Christ. Christ suffered there for the 6 hours on the cross. But Job suffered a long time. Job lost everything that he had. I mean, everything that he had. He lost his wealth. He lost his health. He lost his family. There were so many things that he lost. His wife said, why don't you curse God and die? And Job said, you speak like a foolish woman.
That's right.
Amen. Naked came I into this world, naked shall I return thither. The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Yeah. All right. And so we find that Job, he lost everything, but the devil couldn't touch his life. And that life, in the end of Job, was so restored that he had 10 more children. Amen. And they were the fairest in all the land. God restored everything that the devil had taken away from him.
That's right.
God restored it. But during the time that it was removed, I don't believe Job felt like it's ever going to get restored. He said, I wish it had never been said that a man-child had been born. I wish I'd never come into the world. You know, have you ever wished that you'd never been born, that you could die? Have you ever wished that? Well, Job did. But notice where the book of Job is placed in the Bible. It's placed right before all of the praising in the book of Psalms. You go through all of this terrible time and reading all the awful things that Job had to endure at the hands of the devil, and then all of a sudden it breaks forth in the singing and praising in the book of Psalms. And isn't Psalms the longest book in the Bible?
Yes.
Huh? I mean, and it is full of poetry and singing and it's rejoicing and praising of God. God is showing the restoration of all things. This world is going through that right now. The world had a generation when God made it, and then there was the degeneration. We're in that right now. We've never known what Eden was like. We don't know that. We were not there. We don't know what Eden was like, and every detail of that paradise is not revealed to us. We don't know what language they spoke. We don't know how they really interacted with the animals. We don't know how long the surgery took for Eve to be created. We don't know all of those things. Amen. Because we've only known degeneration. We've only seen the sin aspect. We've only seen what it does, the cankerworm everywhere. The cankerworm's destroying our world, our lives. That's all we have known.